I'm Alex Just, and welcome to the final instalment of the Institute of Employment Rights Fact News General Election vlog. Over the last few episodes, we've looked at all of the main political parties' manifestos to see what their policies say in terms of employment rights and how they address some of the challenges facing workers in the gig economy, low-wage workers, and in general, how to deal with industrial relations in 2017 and beyond. I've identified what I think are 6 key choices that people will have at this election based on an analysis of all of the manifestos, and in particular looking at how the parties compare to this, the IER's own manifesto for labour law. The election is in 6 days' time, so here are 6 key differences between, I think, this document, the Conservative Party manifesto, and this document, the Labour Party manifesto. Because if the polls are correct, and they aren't always, but those certainly seem to be the 2 parties who are most likely to be able to form governments after the general election. So, choice number 1. Either you can have access to justice for all workers, which means the scrapping of employment tribunal fees, something that's been proposed by the Labour Party, also by the Liberal Democrats and by the SNP, or you can continue to have unfair employment tribunal fees that has priced already tens of thousands of workers out of a fair hearing. The second choice is either a genuine living wage of £10 an hour by 2020, or the fake living wage, which the Conservatives are proposing, which is going to be based on 50 to 60% of median earnings, meaning if inflation kicks in the next few years, and many experts believe after Brexit that is something that's likely to happen, that means workers who would be paid the minimum wage would not necessarily have enough money to actually afford to live off. And lots of the parties in their manifestos have said that they want to have a living wage that's set independently by an organisation akin to the Living Wage Commission. So that's the second clear choice. The third choice is whether or not workers get protection from day one on the job, or they have continued uncertainty because they're agency workers or they're engaged in the gig economy. Now, the Labour Party is really the only party that's dealt specifically with this issue of employee and worker status. It's something that's been written about at length by some of the Labour lawyers who have written in the IER's manifesto, and do have a look at the website Fact News Hub and the IER's website to see more analysis on this issue. As we approach a position where more and more people are going to be engaged in work, but not necessarily have what we think of as a traditional job, Labour law has to keep up with that. And the Labour Party manifesto does seem to have one of the solutions to this problem, which is rather than having lots of complicated definitions about how you categorise people, just say everybody should have basic rights to particularly not be unfairly dismissed, regardless of how long they've been in a company, and regardless of whether they're an agency worker or self-employed or working under the terms of a gig economy employer like Uber or Deliveroo. The next choice, number 4, is whether or not there's going to be an end to 0 hours contracts and the exploitation that they often bring, or just reform of 0 hours contracts, which will fail to protect millions of low-paid workers. The Labour Party and the SNP have been very explicit that they want to ban 0 hours contracts. The Lib Dems have said that they're sort of interested in having a consultation, and the Conservative Party have not really said anything concrete about how they think 0 hours contracts can be brought under control, apart from giving workers some rights to request more formal contractual arrangements. But that's not the same as a ban. So with the Labour Party manifesto, you get a clear ban. With the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, you don't really know where you stand. 5th, there's a choice between either ending the repressive and draconian Trade Union Act, which flouts international labour law standards, or continuing the severe restriction on trade union rights and the rights of trade union members to organise, to fundraise, and to take legitimate industrial action. Now, the SNP are the only other party who have really said explicitly that they want to dismantle the Trade Union Act of 2016. The Green Party have some references in their manifesto to increasing the role of democratic trade unions, but once again, it's the Labour Party manifesto that's got the clearest commitment of the two main parties to dealing with this issue of making sure that there is a fair system for workers, whether or not they're employed in essential public services or not, and the definition of that, as we've seen from other analysis that's been done by IER experts, doesn't comply necessarily with the ILO's standards of what an essential service is anyway. So that is the fifth choice. And finally, the sixth choice is between whether or not you can find anybody who can propose a really radical change to the UK's overall industrial relations framework that promotes the use of sectoral collective bargaining and the genuine engagement of trade unions in helping to combat inequality and to allow companies to grow and prosper, or the continued erosion of trade unions in our society and fairly feeble attempts to improve worker democracy through either phony employee representation schemes or by setting up company subcommittees which will have no real mechanism to feed into management and won't have any teeth in order to ensure that the views and rights of workers are upheld. So looking across the board, again, it's the Labour Party manifesto which is closest to the manifesto for labour law. The framework that the Labour Party is proposing to have by starting a Ministry of Labour, by having sectoral collective agreements, and by covering many, many more workers within industries under those agreements, that's a complete game changer. And it's something that's not actually had a lot of coverage in the press, but it's something that we at the IER think is really hugely important and very significant. So those are the six key differences that you have between the Labour and the Conservative manifestos. As you'll see, it's fairly weighted in terms of where we think the rights of workers will be better protected and where the rights of trade unions and trade union members to organise and fundraise will be secured for the next 5 years. So you've got 6 more days to go to the Fact News hub, read more articles and information, and then to enjoy the great democratic privilege of being able to vote. So we will end our vlog series now, but we may be back after the election to give you some analysis about what the first Queen's speech of the next government has in store for employment rights. Thank you for watching.